You're listening to the audio portion of Workshop Wednesdays. Workshop Wednesdays is a free live discussion about topics affecting accountants, bookkeepers, and business owners. You can join the ABO group in Facebook to participate live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Just search for ABBO in Facebook. This podcast is brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, where you will learn, grow, and build a thriving bookkeeping practice. We have hundreds of lessons with almost every aspect of the industry. Start your free month today at Schoolofbookkeeping.com.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com. You may notice that Carrie looks a little different today.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
We have normally Landon is in the background and doing a lot of the posting and sharing and those types of things. But today he's joining us actually for part of the discussion because Carrie's not here. And the reason that Carrie is not here is she is buried in 1099's. And so we thought it would be a good exercise or part of the workshop here to talk about 1099's in general. During this workshop, Landon and myself, we worked together to it and fielded a lot of questions about this whole process. Typically January was considered, busy month, right? When we worked into it, mandatory overtime, those types of things, because there were a lot of questions about these payroll forms and 1099's that would be due on January 31st. So, Landon, you want to talk about a little bit about what a 1099 is in as far as your experiences?
Over the last 7 years of working with QuickBooks, I've had the opportunity to see the 1099 transform. Almost hit my water ball over. Transform from the NEC and the MISC and all of that transform into different boxes that you need to report to right. This, that. Every year there's something changing that is required by the IRS, and to stay compliant, we got to make sure we do our due diligence to make sure we have that information available to us.
Right. Now, I used to do training at Intuit, and I would always do the year-end training, and I always liked to talk about 1099s because they were relatively simple, right? It's just a convergence of three things. The vendor's set up properly, the accounts are mapped appropriately, and the threshold has been met for whatever box that happens to be. And that was for the 1099 miscellaneous form. You mentioned that a little earlier. Since then, since that time frame, we've kind of expanded the 1099 umbrella, as it were, because there's now three forms that are potentially impacted by a 1099. And the situation is just very simply. I paid a subcontractor. They're not my employee. Typically that's what it results in, right? And the majority of the time, Landon, I'm sure you would agree, from the calls that would come in, it was all about box 7 on the 1099 miscellaneous form, which is non-employee compensation, right? That's the typical scenario. Is I have a contractor, I have somebody who worked for me, did some work for me in my business, and I need to pay them their set amount. They're not my employee, right? So it's non-employee compensation. So last year or the year before that, the IRS resurrected the 1099 NEC form, which is non-employee compensation, right? So now there's two forms that could potentially be impacted. Your 1099 miscellaneous is just missing box 7, right? Or box 7 has changed to whatever box 8 was and shifted all up. So now there's two potential. One situation is I pay a contractor, and they get the 1099 NEC form, And then I have all the other things that flow into a 1099 miscellaneous form, and then I have to do 1099 miscellaneous on top of that. Now, there's a curveball thrown in there of a 1099K, right? Because there has been, I mean, what is your impression of what a 1099K is, Landon?
That was like the #1 call driver when I was a frontline agent. When it came to 1099s, because it'd be like, where are my payments? Okay, what account did you pay with? And if it was a credit card company that paid it,
right.
So your American Express, they issue that to your contractor on your behalf.
Right.
So
the situation is if you paid somebody with a credit card, then you don't. That's not part of non-employee compensation, right? Because the payment processor issues the 1099Ks to the person that, or to the individual or the entity that accepted the credit card. So that was part of the confusion, right, Landon? Is that people would come in and say, "Hey, I paid this person. They're set up as a 1099 vendor. I used the right accounts. I mapped it to the right box, and their 1099 didn't get created. Their 1099 miscellaneous for non-employee compensation." The reason being is those payments are excluded from that box because the payment processor, whoever that happens to be, will be issuing a 1099K to the payee.
That's correct.
Does that confuse anyone?
A lot of the time, I saw that they're comparing that report to like a vendor-specific report that is showing the credit card payments. Well, the payments made via credit card, and that's where the biggest confusion lied.
All right. So you've put a link in there about what was the form, how-to form. So it just shows. I cannot. Oops! I didn't want to show it. I wanted to click on it. Where is?
Here, I'll send it in the.
Why don't you share it? Share what you're looking at.
So let me grab my screen here. Oh, it's just loading.
While you're bringing that up, we wanted to talk a little bit about the email that just came out with regards to filing and paying for the 1099 e-file service. There's been some changes. Perfect time for changes to happen in the midst of 1099 e-file.
Right.
But so the situation was, if you are paying for or managing your client's billing for the QuickBooks Online subscription, the 1099 e-file service, which in the past, Landon bringing it up here, good. In the past, the 1099 e-file service was a separate service that was just a la carte, right? So the challenge is that when it's firm billed, meaning that the accountant is managing the subscription, they're also managing the subscription for any online payroll services. The 1099 e-file service was technically, from our experience, was actually part of the online payroll suite of services. So it fell under the umbrella of, this is a payroll service. So this January, what happened was that the change that happened is that a client couldn't file their own 1099s with that e-file service because the firm was paying for the subscription, and there was a billing block on that happening. So originally, Intuit's position was, well, work with your clients, to get this done. Some of those accountants had a large amount of clients that they were managing the billing for, but that was not part of their scope of service to be able, to do the 1099 filing for them, because of that billing block, it would not allow them to continue to pay or to finish their 1099s. And a lot of those accountants and bookkeepers and client relationships was that you go ahead and do your 1099s. I'm not doing that for you. Now I need to have a communication with all of my clients about how they would actually do that. Well, that's not the most ideal circumstance. So in true Intuit form, they do learn from their mistakes. They just they just happen to do this at like the 11th hour, right? So as of today, your clients can actually finish or prepare their 1099 e-file service for a small fee of $4.99 per form when they e-file. The catch, I don't know if we call it a catch, but the what you need to do still as the client management of the charges, you need to actually do the e-filing as the accountant. So you still need to be able to do that. And that's if they have 20 forms, that's now $100, right? It's not what it was before. Like when we had this conversation two weeks ago about the discrepancies on the 1099 e-file pricing. Now it's just a la carte, $4.99 a form, and then you still need to go in and e-file finish the e-filing process for your clients. The other alternative is you can add contractor payments to the client, which is a QuickBooks Online payroll offering, right? So there you go. So for $10.50, you can add the $10 under the firm billing promotion, whatever this is here. This is the a la carte pricing. For $10.50 a month, you can have unlimited e-filings, is what it says. So it's and that will actually look back at the prior year, right? So you can just add it for a month or what have you, fill out your 1099s. I don't know if you can then cancel it or do it for just a month just to do your 1099. But that remains to be seen. So, wow, that was a lot of divergence there. Anything you want to add there, Landon? I was doing most of the talking.
No, you're good. I think you covered most of it there. Yeah, the only big thing we don't know is how that looks after the fact, or if you could just have it on for the service part. So there's more to come as they transition this change, and just like with anything that they do change, the learning curve.
Calendar, and it looks like my calendar. The deadline is fast approaching. It's 6 days from now, so hopefully they get their act together for the 31st. And it's likely not going to be the 31st. It'll probably be a couple days prior to that, because you need to make sure that those are either e-filed, stamped. Sometimes there's not a funding delay, but a lead time that you need to allot for or give allowance for. Yeah. So that being said, there's a lot of moving parts, all within the 11th hour of that sort of thing. We're not going to go through, how do you prepare, your 1099s and those types of things here on the workshop, because there are, significantly a lot of nuances to it. Our friend over at Royal Wise, Alicia Katz Pollock, she's actually created a whole course, and I'm just going to throw that link in there. So if you have any questions about, how do I do this? How do I set up my vendors? How do I make sure I have their W-9s and those types of things for the 1099s? You can check out that pre-recorded, self-paced learning course. and she was actually one of the people that was vastly impacted by this change, because she has like 85 companies that she manages the billing for, and was not prepared for this change in billing and client interactions. Like it's almost like a forced client engagement based on a change that was entirely out of her control. So she's created this course. You can certainly check it out. We certainly would recommend that. If you need more guidance on how do I prepare 1099s, how do I map, how do I do all this stuff inside of QuickBooks Online directly. That course is focused on the online version. Desktop is somewhat similar. Just to go through the wizard, but is ultimately how you file your 1099s. Do you remember when that change took place? It used to be linked to the 1099 e-file service, but then at some point, was it 2018 or 2017?
Yeah, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, it could be more. Yeah, because they switched to tax 1099 for that, and I know they were using it before, but it became that was the main source of filing through QuickBooks Desktop.
Yeah. So we came across a scenario, and we kind of want to unpack that here on the workshop. Oh, is there anything you wanted to show? I just started talking about other things.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to call out with this change, I just actually read it in this article that I will post here, but I will also bring it over. If any of your clients, if they have, let me see, where does it say? If you previously used Intuit Full Service Payroll, it is important to note that we will no longer be filing your 1099s for you. You are responsible for the filings. So if you have any that do fall under this case, just make sure that you are aware of this and that you do take care of those filings.
Now, just to clarify on that, that is the Intuit Full Service Payroll Service, right? Which is not QBO Payroll Elite, which is a full service payroll service, right? It is it was IOP, right? The Intuit Online Payroll Service, which sat between QuickBooks and payroll, right? Like it was not deeply integrated as QBO Payroll is. So what we're talking about here is Intuit Full Service Payroll, which was outside of QuickBooks. And that is not the flavor of the payroll offerings that are currently available today. And it should be that all of these services were migrated to a QBO payroll standalone offering, which then would mean that this doesn't apply to you. But if depending on when that migration took place, right, that could be you could be sitting on both sides of the fence. So, but it is important to note that if you were using the Intuit Full Service Payroll Service, that you're responsible for filing the 1099s now. Yeah. I think we're just confusing more people than we're
if you didn't work for them, it's hard to understand their product lines that they have offered because of how many changes they've done.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens, right? Is and you can probably attest to the changes of offerings where they try to make things simpler. They're streamlining in this idea. The whole idea here is they're streamlining their payroll offerings under the QBO payroll umbrella because there was IOP, there was IOP for A, there was IOP Full Service Payroll Service that was just muddying up the waters. And as Susan has clearly pointed out, it is as clear as mud. But in their defense, into its defense, is trying to clarify, is trying to simplify the payroll offerings. We are just in this what is it? We're straddling both sides of the fence, as during this migration period. I mean, we've gotten lots of circumstances that we could talk about where things are being brought into a consolidated offering, for lack of a better word, and the people that were on the other side of that sometimes had some pain, right? Like, when they were Intuit Online Payroll Service had its own login, and QBO had its own login, and they were trying to migrate everything over to the QBO login. Hilarity ensued.
Ooh, I am login.
Right. All right. So this brings up a interesting scenario. So we've talked about, a 1099-K is issued by the credit card processor. A 1099 miscellaneous or NEC is issued by the payment initiator, for lack of a better word. Like, I made a payment, right? So I need to, file my 1099s. And so the scenario is now muddied even further with solutions like Melio, Corpay, or Corpay One, even Bill.com, right?
Yep.
Where you have this situation where you're able to modify the funding source, but then the recipient actually receives a different source or a different payment option other than what you initially initiated the payment on, right? So one of the advantages of Melio and Corpay One and Bill.com is that you get to choose, right? It's very similar to like a Venmo. I'm going to split dinner with, Landon and I go out to dinner and we're going to split it, right? And I want to, he's going to pay for it and I'm going to Venmo him, my half of the bill, right? So, because I don't carry cash, so who does, right? With Venmo, same philosophy. I can choose however I want to pay Landon through Venmo, and he can choose however he wants to receive those funds through Venmo, right? It's not like I gave him cash, he takes cash, or I gave him a check, he cashed the check, or I gave him paid him by credit card, and then that starts the electronic transfer of funds, right? So with Melio and these bill pay services, you have the ability to be selective of how you want to pay your vendors. So maybe I don't have the cash in my bank account and I want to pay it by credit card, which gives me a little bit of a float, because then I don't have to pay that credit card statement for 25 days or 45 days or whatever the billing cycle is. But in that situation, I'm paying by a credit card. So in the 1099 terminology, that payment should be excluded. But the customer, the person I'm paying, the subcontractor, which you can pay subcontractors this way, is actually getting an ACH, which should be documented on the 1099s. So this brings up a super confusing situation. Who issues the 1099s in that case? We've been spending all morning trying to answer this question.
It's confusing.
What?
Like, there's because Melio basically, like, it makes it sound like you have to go still generate it, but then send it out. But then it comes into play with the IRS standards. That would be the credit card company. But then would the credit card company just send a 1099-K to Melio? Because Melio would then be the acceptor of payment at that point.
Yeah, there's not a clear answer out there. Because the information that we saw on Melio's website was that they'll help you prepare the 1099s, but they don't do the 1099s. Whether it's the NEC, the miscellaneous, or the 1099-K. Incidentally, there's tons of other 1099 forms out there. There's 1099-R, there's 1099 DIV, there's 1099 INT. None of that is what we're talking about here. We're just talking about the situation of whatever's in the miscellaneous, because that's the only form that QuickBooks will actually support filling and filing. And I lost my train of thought. So for this type of situation where you've paid by a credit card and you've so Melio doesn't actually help you. It doesn't fill out an e-file, print, any of that stuff with regards to filing your 1099. So now you're back to, they'll help you with like a CSV download or something like that to help you prepare your 1099. So now you're back to, okay, well, what do I do inside of QuickBooks, right? Which leads you back to Alicia's course. So if you have a question about how to do that, but there's really no clear-cut answer as far as this situation of I funded the payment with a credit card, but they got paid with an ACH. Where's who's responsible for the 1099? So hopefully that's not you. That's not your situation, because I don't have a clear answer for you either way. But that means that you may be receiving a follow-up email or a follow-up notice from the IRS if you didn't do it right, because ultimately all of these responsibilities come back on the business owner to know these things. So we should try to get the answer and see if we can't find a resource, and if not, this will make a really good blog article for School of Bookkeeping, because the answer's not out there. So we need to do a little research and get a more clear cut answer to that scenario. So Landon, what do you think? This opportunity to come on the workshop and chat about crap?
Yeah. I actually do like it a lot. I am, like the other day, I didn't mean to show my face, and I was like, but I love it. Like, and being able to just spend time with the people that come every week and be able to share my expertise with you guys I love it. And
awesome.
What I'm here for. I do want to, I'm putting in chat, if you do use Melio, here are the instructions for generating a CSV form on Melio payments. I don't know necessarily if that has the credit card payments in there, but this can help you in that case if you do use Melio. We will continue to find out what happens with the credit card payment paid via ACH scenario.
Yeah, we're actually in discussion with Corpay One, and I think we have a meeting with them Thursday, or myself. I'm going to raise this question and see if they have a resource that really delineates that, and then we can work on that. But appreciate you all joining us here today on the workshop. There's a lot to discuss and unpack here. If you want to get notified when the workshops are coming up, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hopefully there's enough sources here in the chat links and comments to get you started, because you have 6 days to file these 10. Hopefully that's why you're here. Right, you're actually doing your 1099s today, because that's where Carrie is. She's in the midst of processing hundreds of 1099s over the course of all of 2022. So next week, next workshop, we will be joined again by our friends over at File. We'll continue our discussion of expense management fundamentals. So hopefully you will join us then for another action-packed Workshop Wednesday. Appreciate you joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.